When you don't understand a sentence in class, you don't just lose knowledge, you also lose your position. Episode 1. The first class. I sat in the middle row. Not because I was confident, but because I didn't know where else to sit. The professor walked in. He spoke fast, very steady. The class nodded, laughed at the right spots, took notes. As for me, I only caught fragments. A few familiar words. Very few. I looked at the slides. Words moved, but the meaning didn't. I tried to guess, tried to piece it together. But the harder I tried, the further it drifted away. Sometimes the professor asked the class. Everyone answered. I stayed silent. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I didn't know how to open my mouth. I took a lot of notes. Not to understand, but to not be exposed. Class ended. I walked slowly. Left last. In the hallway, people were discussing, laughing and talking. I walked among them, as if walking in a different language. That night, I reopened my notebook. Read line by line. Some lines I understood. Some I didn't. I underlined the strange words. A lot of them. For the first time, I realized one thing. Not understanding what others say is much lonelier than having no one to talk to. No one laughed out loud, but just one small sound is enough to keep you silent for a long time. Blank, underscore, blank. Episode 2. I have been laughed at. Not a loud laugh. Just a few giggles. I mispronounced a very simple word. I knew at the moment I said it. The air stilled for a beat. Then someone laughed. The professor corrected me. Very gently. But I couldn't hear anything anymore. My face felt hot. My ears rang. I nodded. Sat down. For the rest of the class, I didn't say another word. After class, I went back to my room. Closed the door. I opened the dictionary. Listened to the pronunciation again. Repeated it. Very quietly. Some words I got right. Some were still wrong. I realized the hard part isn't the pronunciation. It's overcoming the moment you are seen as weak. The next day, I still went to class. Still sat there. I didn't say much. But I didn't disappear. Sometimes, silence isn't giving up. It's the only way to keep from running away. I don't write in English. I write with time. And a dictionary open all night. Blank, underscore, blank. Episode 3. My first essay. It took me forever to start. Not because of ideas, but because of words. I wrote a sentence. Stopped. Opened the dictionary. TRA. Closed. Kept writing. In some parts, one sentence took nearly 10 minutes. Not because I was being fancy, but because I was afraid of making mistakes. I wrote slowly. Very slowly. While others had finished 2 pages, I had only finished half. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat with my essay and the dictionary. No one knew what I was doing. No one read with me. Just me. And word by word. When I printed it out, my hands shook slightly. Not because I was nervous about the grade, but because I knew I had put so much into it. After submitting it, I went outside. Took a breath. Not relieved. Just finished. A few weeks later, the paper was returned. No high grade. No praise. Just one comment. Clear effort. I looked at that line for a long time. Not because of pride, but because for the first time, I felt my actions were understood. I don't speak well. I only speak slowly enough not to leave myself behind. Blank, underscore, blank. Episode 4. The day I had to present. I arrived earlier than everyone. Not to prepare the slides. The slides were done last night. I came early to get used to the room. I stood before the board. Looked at the empty seats. Said a few lines to myself. Very quietly. Not smooth. but no stumbles. When the class filled up, my heart beat fast. A familiar feeling. When it was my turn, I stood up, took my laptop, walked up. I looked up. Didn't look for familiar faces. Just looked at the space right above their heads. I began. The first sentence wasn't perfect, but it didn't break. I spoke slowly, clearly. Didn't try to use difficult words. There was a moment I forgot a word. I paused for a beat. Changed the sentence. No one laughed. I continued. I didn't try to look fluent. I just tried to say exactly what I understood. When I looked down, I saw a few people nodding. Someone was taking notes. The professor looked at me. Normally. Didn't correct. Didn't prompt. Finishing. I stopped. Breathed. There was applause. Not loud, but enough. I went back to my seat. Sat down. That's when I realized I had said everything without getting lost. Not because I got better, just that I got used to taking each step in this language. The day they asked me to guide others, I knew this language has finally started listening to me. __. Episode 5. The email arrived in the afternoon. Short. Very polite. They asked if I could support a new group of students. I read it twice to make sure it wasn't the wrong name. I didn't reply right away. I sat still. I thought of my first day. Not understanding the professor. Being laughed at for my pronunciation. Writing essays with a dictionary. I replied, yes. On the day we met. I arrived early. The new students sat in a circle. They looked at me, waiting. I introduced myself. Very simply. I didn't speak fast. I didn't say much. I only told them very small things. How to find classes. How to ask when not understanding. How not to disappear. Someone asked me a question. Very simple. I answered. Not fluently, but clearly. They nodded. At that moment, I realized something very strange. I was no longer standing outside this language. I still make mistakes. Still get words wrong. But I am inside it. The meeting ended. Everyone stood up. One student said, thank you. I nodded. That night, I went back to my room. Sat down. No feeling of victory. Just a very light sense of peace. Language eventually doesn't ask where you come from. It only asks if you stayed long enough. We're more than just viewers, we're companions. Subscribe so we don't lose touch.